What's going on, y'all? It's Big Facts again, coming at you with another video. So recently, as we all know, the Major General of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, Qasem Soleimani, featured right here, was recently killed by U.S. airstrikes taken out in Iraq. Now, with that said, there's been a lot of talks and going all out through social media about World War III sparking off and what are the next steps that are going to be taking place. And I wanted to give this video to break down to you what is going to be the next move in this chess battle, because this is not going to be a straightforward type of conflict. You know, your typical conventional type of war. That's not going to happen, as both sides, the United States and Iran, do not want to take on a lengthy conflict, which is what will have to occur if they were to get into a conventional war. And even with this asymmetric battle that they have going on, this is going to be a lengthy process too as well, and one that's going to be very devastating. So I just wanted to break down about 10 steps that Iran has, or 10 different scenarios that are going to take place, you know, going forward with due to this whole conflict. All right. So let's take a look at the country of Iran. So I did a video back about a month or two ago about Iran and how it's difficult for U.S. forces to invade Iran, or any force for that matter to invade Iran. Okay. And in that video, I detailed the terrain of Iran. And as you can see here, Iran is a very mountainous region. So having a land invasion will be very costly and strenuous on any forces, be it the United States, Russia, China, no matter how powerful, it will be very strenuous. The only way to overcome this is through technology. But technology has not advanced to the point to where you're not going to have to rely on oil and other resources that are going to be needed to maintain a large military, and especially a military that wants to embark on a scale of a massive land invasion. As you see here, very rough terrain, mountainous, so you're going to have to exhaust a lot of resources. And then the capital of Tehran is all the way to the north. So you're about hundreds of miles away from the Persian Gulf and the Gulf of Oman to reach Tehran. So it's going to be very strenuous, and the Iranian forces keep any force at bay from ever reaching the capital. But with that said, Iran's only choice to stop this whole U.S. issue was actually their best defense, in all honesty, was to attack the United States first. Now, like I said, this is a chess battle, not checkers. And the United States and the National Security Advisor and then the Defense Secretary, they all knew this, and which is why they advised that Donald Trump take action first. Because the best defense for Iran was for them to attack the United States first. And they kind of did, because 2 days after Christmas, there was a U.S. contractor that was attacked and killed by a rocket attack outside of a U.S. base in Iraq. So that right there had already agitated, you know, that was enough to tell Donald Trump right there that, hey, he needs to strike first. Remember months earlier, too, that the United States had actually planned on levering out airstrikes on Iran, but Donald Trump had held off on that. And I think it was just more so of concerns of how Iran will respond, also to the response of the U.S. people back home, whether they wanted to get involved in another lengthy conflict. So there was no real reason the Trump administration had on taking out Iran and going on with airstrikes. But this, with the U.S. contractor being attacked, this was more than enough reason for the U.S. to, you know, say like, hey, we have to take out Rouhani, which Rouhani is the general of the Revolutionary Guard, as I stated. And he has been responsible in training a lot of the proxy militias that have taken fights on in Yemen, in Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, with Hezbollah there. So he's been responsible in training those and actually taken on this battle between Iran and Saudi Arabia, because this isn't an Iran-U.S. conflict. This is more so of a Cold War going on between Saudi Arabia and Iran. And it just so happens the largest and most powerful military in the world happens to be on the side of Saudi Arabia. That is the United States of America, which is why they kind of, people kind of get this construed in thinking that it's a battle between the U.S. and Iran, when it's more so a battle between Iran and Saudi Arabia. But with that said, now the United States has already taken out Qasem. So the best Qasem Soleimani, the United States has already taken out Qasem Soleimani. Now the best thing that Iran can do, the best thing that they can do, and this is what I think they're going to have to take place, is this. President of Iran, Hassan Rouhani, is going to have to respond, because his political opponents will deem him weak if he does not respond to the U.S. attacks and killing of Qasem Soleimani, of General Qasem Soleimani. If he does not respond to these killings, the people of Iran, as well as his political opponents, will deem him weak and will want him out. Now, to save political face, he has now 4 steps in which he can take. He has options. This is President Rouhani. And for those of you who don't know who President Rouhani is, this is this gentleman right here. This is the president of Iran, Hassan Rouhani. This is him. Take a good look at him. Now, he has steps in what he can take in solving this whole matter, or at least saving face for Iran. Step number 1 is this. He now full forces sends out his proxy forces out in Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, and Yemen. Now, what proxy forces does he have? In Yemen, he has the Houthis. He can now toss in more weaponry, more money to help fund those, to help prolong their battle in taking out Saudi Arabia. He can come over here to Lebanon, giving Hezbollah, another Shia-backed militia, he can give them more money, more weaponry to at least provoke and attack Israel. Same thing, the Syria conflict. He can get his rebels out there in Syria, and then also to the Syrian-backed government, who are a pro-Shia government with Iran. He can give them money. Iraq is already in a civil war. They can start off stuff there. So all over, Saudi Arabia is going to have to deal with proxy conflicts being taken all over. They're going to be surrounded and bombarded, and then they're going to cry out for help from the United States, which the United States will have to intervene and have to, take out fires in Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, and Yemen, already stretching U.S. forces. He can take that matter. Number 2, he can now issue out ballistic missiles to target U.S. bases in Saudi Arabia, Bahrain. This is a country of Bahrain right here. He can have U.S. forces taken out there. United Arab Emirates, he can have them taken out there. Also, too, in countries like Kuwait, U.S. bases in Kuwait, Iran can have those bases being taken out there. So he can institute that and all other U.S. allied nations within the Middle East. Now, I don't think that's going to happen. That is not Iran's style. They basically like to operate in a way that they don't have to claim responsibility for any of the attacks. So that doesn't seem like a likely scenario, but that's an option that they do have. Now, another option that they have is the Iran paramilitary good forces can sabotage and shut down significant portions of oil production in Saudi Arabia. Now, they have already done that before in the later parts of 2019. They have done that before, which agitated a lot of other battles. And you've seen oil prices were affected by it. And they can do the same thing, too. This time, they can just basically destroy it, which will send, the world market into a panic. And overnight, you can see oil prices shoot up to close to $100 a barrel. That's another likely scenario. And then fourth which I think will more than likely happen. Iran uses their anti-ship missiles over here in the Strait of Hormuz, where 40% of the world's oil passes through. 40%, that's a big deal. They can send out their anti-ship missiles, speedboats, naval mines, just basically levy this whole area with mines so that any ship, no matter what it is, will just be blown up. Straight blown up. And this is Iran right here. Here's the Strait of Hormuz, dominated heavily by Iranian forces. They can easily just litter this place with mines. The Strait of Hormuz, litter this place with mines. Any ship coming through here, blown up. And automatically, the panic would drive oil prices up, causing a global recession. And I think this is the most likely scenario right here. Scenario number 1 and 4. With the proxy forces being ratcheted up in areas, like I stated, Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, Yemen, and as well as in Afghanistan. I forgot to mention that Iran neighboring Afghanistan, they have forces here. So they can easily send out troops here or proxies here in Afghanistan, which U.S. forces are still there, and to have the United States forces stretched thin and also just litter up the Strait of Hormuz, like I stated. Now, those are the likely scenarios, and I think that is most likely going to be Iran's next step, is to just agitate U.S. forces, cause a lot of economic despair for the United States and in the world economy at whole. So those are things that are going to happen because they're going to have to save face. President Rouhani does not want to lose, the faith of his people. Understand this. This is like a U.S. general imagine a U.S. general being attacked, killed, and then Donald Trump not doing anything about it. His own base, too, as much as those crazy as those Trump supporters are, his own base will even question whether he's the right man to lead the country. And in a country like Iran, which has never been a victim of things like colonialism, it's not an artificial nation. This is a historic country with, people that are real Persians, and they haven't had much outside influence. They're a very prideful nation, and nationalism runs deep in this country, runs deep throughout all those people. So with that said, be prepared to pay higher prices at the pump. Be prepared to hear if you have any family members fighting in the U.S. Armed Forces, having to be sent out or having to deal with battles going on in Syria, Yemen, Afghanistan, and Iraq. They're going to have to deal with that because that's going to be Iran's next move in this chess battle. They're going to ratchet up the proxies, put a battery behind their back, light up the Strait of Hormuz, fill up the Strait of Hormuz with mines. They're ready to go. All right. Hezbollah, for all you Israelis watching, Hezbollah their activities get to ratchet up too. They're going to be shooting missiles out in Israel. Israel, knowing the way that they are, they're more than likely going to respond and drag the United States into another conflict. And what we have to look at here is now the United States right here, and this is proving my point that the United States had to attack. United States wanted to respond to Iran's preemptive attack by preempting their preemptive. Now here, this isn't a post by this is an article by the Washington Post on how Trump decided to kill top Iranian general. Now, I'm not going to read through all this, but in this article, there was one particular statement coming from National Security Advisor Robert C. O'Brien. Now, Robert C. O'Brien went on to say in a conference call with reporters, National Security Advisor Robert C. O'Brien said Friday evening that the strike on Soleimani happened after he recently visited Damascus and was plotting to target U.S. military and diplomatic personnel. Like I stated, Iran's best defense was to attack the United States first. So he already had plans to attack U.S. military and diplomatic personnel. Think about that. And the U.S. got tips of that. So like I've been saying throughout earlier in this video, that they needed to attack first. They needed to attack Iran first. So this strike was aimed at disrupting ongoing attacks that were being planned by Soleimani and deterring future Iranian attacks through their proxies, like I stated, or through the Quds Force directly against Americans, O'Brien said. Now, for those of you who don't know, this is Robert C. O'Brien, and Robert C. O'Brien, he's a national security advisor. He was also the gentleman that helped get ASAP Rocky into better, I would say, better custody or better. He helped ASAP Rocky get out of Sweden from his last trouble. He was the one that helped demand for a hotel room and for them to be treated in a much better fashion than going into normal Swedish jail. This is the gentleman who did this. That's Robert C. O'Brien. So that's the national security advisor. And basically, we just have to be cautious. Right now, I just checked the price of oil. Oil right now is at $63 a barrel. So if Iran does pull this off, like I'm assuming that they are, they're going to look to, send out their proxies in full force and just basically light up the Strait of Hormuz, where 40% of the world's oil passes through. And let me tell you this, with them doing that, with the proxies going, don't be surprised if the proxies copy the same thing Iran would do in the Strait of Hormuz by now making sure that they mine the whole Red Sea. Now, the whole Red Sea, if these are filled with mine, then the world is definitely going to go face a world recession because oil is a bloodline of the global economy. Everything runs through oil. All right. Already the global economy is pretty weak outside of the United States. So anything that will just make oil prices go up, you're going to see productivity and activity in the world just diminish. And the Red Sea is another important passage because this is where a lot of goods, oil, a lot of things that are needed in running the economy pass through here. So you can get from the Suez Canal into the Red Sea and out to the rest of the world. So the Gulf of Aden, Red Sea, Strait of Hormuz, or Gulf of Oman, these are all going to be areas that Iran is going to be able to affect, that is going to hurt the global economy, all because of this silly Cold War that Iran and Saudi Arabia got going on. But that's the next step Iran has to take. I want to hear what y'all have to say. I'm going to continue to give you guys videos on what's going to be going on through this chess battle. Like, comment, subscribe down below. I'm out.